All right, old school NBA fans, self-research, NBA facts. Got another video for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. This video here has to do with the teams that won back-to-back championships. There's 22 of them in NBA history. Now, first we need to establish that if a team three-peats, or in the case of the Boston Celtics, they won 8 in a row, that was 7 back-to-backs. I got into an argument about somebody who could not wrap their brain around a three-peat also entails back-to-back. So we'll take the Lakers, for example. In 2000 and 2001, those 2 seasons, that's back-to-back. You defended your title. Okay, so 2000 and 2001, that's a back-to-back. But also 2001 and 2002 is a back-to-back. So a three-peat is essentially 2 back-to-backs. It's a back-to-back-to-back. So it's 2 and 1. The person insisted you had to have 4 in a row to be considered 2 back-to-backs. It was like they couldn't wrap their mind around it. So anyway, assuming all you guys are not, foolish like that, and you totally grasp the idea that a team that wins 3 in a row, that's 2 back-to-backs. There were 22 back-to-back championships in the history of the NBA. So, of the 22, I'm getting into how many of these back-to-back teams beat 55 win or more teams. That's what I'm looking at here. Because it seems like it wasn't as many as you would think. There were some that did way better than others, and some that didn't do that good at all. And it surprised me. All right, so the very first one, the 1949 and 1950 Minneapolis Lakers. Now, the 49 Minneapolis Lakers beat the Rochester Royals. They were 45 and 15. That's the equivalent of 61 and a half wins. And then in 1950, the Lakers beat Syracuse, who was 51 and 13. That's the equivalent of actually 65.3 wins in the finals. So they have 2 right there. Okay, so they won a back-to-back, and 2 teams were 55 plus wins while doing it. All right, but from 52 through 54, which would entail 2 back-to-backs in there, Minneapolis only beat 1 55-win team, and that was the 47 and 23 Knicks. The equivalent would have been 55.2 wins in the finals. That's it in the whole three-peat. The Celtics, from 1959 through 1963, that's the first 5 years of their 8 championship stretch, only beat 1 55 or more win team, and that would have been the 1962 Lakers, who were 54 and 26. That's on pace to win 55.4 games. Then in 1963, they beat no one. In 1964, they beat only Cincinnati, who was a 56.5 win team. They were 55 and 27, on pace to win 56.5 games. In 65, Boston beat no 55-win teams. In 66, they beat Philly, same thing. They were 55 and 27, 56.5 wins, the equivalent of. Okay, so now we get past the equivalent stuff. Boston lost in 67. But what's funny is, from 1959 through 66, those 8 seasons, they only beat 3 teams of 50, the equivalent of 55 wins or more. Now, of course, that doesn't take anything away from them. It's not easy to win 8 in a row, believe me. 4 in a row has only been done once. So, and that was that run. 68 and 69, though, the Celtics, this is what cemented Bill Russell to me as in the GOAT conversation, was 68 and 69. In 68 as the lower seed, Boston, I think they were like a 54-win team. They beat 62 and 20 Philly in the East Finals. And then in 1969, they beat Philly again in the semifinals. They were 55-27. Then they beat the Lakers, who were 55-27. And Boston was only a 48-win team. They were not the best team in the NBA either season. But yet they still won 2 championships. Amazing stuff. But so they won 3, 68-69, 3 55-win teams. Now, 1987, 1988 LA Lakers, they only beat 1, and that was Boston in the finals of 87. Boston was 59-23. That's it. One team in 8 series in the back-to-back. Kind of low. In 1989 and 90, Detroit Pistons, they beat 3. And those teams were, they beat the Lakers in the finals. They were 57-25. Granted, there was injury issues there. They beat the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals in 7 games, 55-27. And they had injury issues too, but whatever. And then in 1990, in the finals, Detroit beat Portland, who was 59-23. So all told, they beat 3 teams, 55 wins or more, which is as many up to that point of anybody in NBA history in the first 40 years of the NBA. So very, very impressive back-to-back there. The Bulls in 1991, 1992, they beat 3. They beat the Lakers in the 91 finals, who was 58-24. They beat Cleveland in the conference finals in 92, who was 57-25. And then they beat Portland in the finals, who was also 57-25, which would give them 3 55-plus win teams they beat. Now, 92-93 is where things started getting a little more difficult. 1993, the Bulls beat the Knicks, who were 60-22, and they beat the Suns, who were 62-20. So they beat 4 55-plus win teams in this stretch, and even 2 60-win teams. So that's the most of both of those up to that point in NBA history. But it didn't last long, because in 1996, the Bulls beat 2 60-win teams. Orlando was 60-22, Seattle was 64-18. And then in 97, they beat 3 teams of 55 wins or more, and 2 60-win teams. They beat Atlanta in the semifinals, who was 56-26. They beat Miami, who was 61-21. And then they beat Utah in the finals, who was 64-18. So 96-97, they beat 5 55-plus win teams and 4 60-plus win teams. And you will find that is the most in NBA history. No one has ever done better than that, and that's by themselves. The 5 55-plus win teams, that was actually done a few times, but not the 4 60-plus win teams. That's the only time a back-to-back team ever beat 4 60 or more win team in a back-to-back. Only time. Now, 97 and 98, the 3 97 teams, then you add the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were 58-24, and then Utah was 62-20. So in those 2 years, in 97 and 98, the Bulls again beat 5 55-win teams in that back-to-back, and 3 60-plus win teams. So that's the second most in a back-to-back in NBA history. And I already know what the detractors and the haters are going to say, and I'm going to get to that at the end of the video. Don't worry. So now the Bulls are done, but as you can see, I mean, they did more damage to 55 and 60 win teams than any back-to-back, any dynasty, anything like that ever. But the Lakers were in the ballpark, definitely. The 2000 to 2001 Lakers. In 2000, the Lakers beat 59-23 Portland. They were a really good team. And then in the finals, they beat Indiana. It was 56-26. And this wasn't the 98 Indiana at all. They didn't have Antonio Davis anymore. How they were only 2 wins less was very surprising. But anyway, the Lakers did beat 2 55-plus win teams. In 01, They beat Sacramento in the semifinals, who was 55-27. They beat San Antonio in the conference finals, who was 58-24. And then they beat Philly in the finals, who was 56-26. So all told, they beat 5 55-plus win teams, but no 60-win teams in there. Now, 01 to 02 is the 3 from 01. And then in 02, they beat San Antonio, was 58-24 again in the semifinals. And then they beat Sacramento, who was 61-21 in the conference finals, to give them also 5 and 1 60-win team. Now, yeah, so they got 5 from 2000 to 2001 and 5 from 01 to 02. But in all 3 years combined, only 1 60-win team. Now, I know it was, and in that particular series, there's a lot of controversy around it. That was the Sacramento 2002 Western Conference Finals. A lot of people felt like Sacramento intentionally got shafted. And after watching it, I'm leaning towards agreeing with it because, I usually don't buy into conspiracies and that kind of thing. But I got to tell you, that one was pretty blatant. It was. So then, Kobe Bryant, he does his own back-to-back without Shaq, right? People like Scap Attack and other people, bigger channels that, are big Kobe fans, right? And again, I'm not a hater of Kobe. I never was. But I'm also not saying like, yeah, Kobe's the man. He's the second best ever. No, I'm not on board with that either. I'm in the middle. I'm not a hater. I'm not a lover. I'm in the middle. All right. 2009 to 2010 Lakers. The only team they beat that was 55 or more wins was Orlando in the 09 finals. It was 59-23. That's it. That's it. 1. Now, Scap Attack will talk about how there was like 50-win teams in the first round. Oh man, he had to beat 4 50-win teams. I know, but let's be reasonable. What would you rather play? A 50, a 53, and a 54-win team to get to the finals? Or would you rather play like a 43-win, a 56-win, and a 60-win team to get to the finals? Exactly. So while, yeah, I guess that's good and all, but no real killers. You know what I'm saying? And in fact, if you go all the way back to 08, when they made the finals or whatever, they beat San Antonio. That was a 56-win team, but they lost to Boston. So they were 2-1 against teams that were 55 wins or more. Yeah, that's a winning record. I get all that, but I'm just saying, okay, it seems like when there was an actual really good team, it was kind of tough sledding for them. But anyway, only 1. That was it, Orlando. And again, yeah, they didn't have any easy rounds, you could say, but they didn't have a lot of hard ones either. Even though they did have a 7-gamer against Houston without McGrady in there. And, of course, the 2010 finals against 50-win Boston. All right. 2012 and 2013 Miami. In their back-to-back, they beat 2 55-plus win teams. OKC, the 2012 finals, they were 47-19. That's the equivalent of 58.4 wins. The Spurs in 2013 finals, the miracle, they were 58-24. So they beat 2 55 or more win teams, but they also beat a plethora of pretty weak teams also. However, no 60-win teams at all in that back-to-back. The last one is the Warriors, 2017-2018. They beat 2 55-plus win teams. They were actually 2 60-win teams. Also, they beat San Antonio in the 2017 Western Conference Finals. They were 61-21. And then in 2018, they beat Houston, who was 65-17. While that all looks great and everything, you got to remember the injuries that went on both teams. They had key injuries that basically destroyed their chances. And the other thing that I just can't stress enough, and I am going to do a video on this, I hear people that talk about how the 90s had teams that had inflated wins. Um, I mean, yeah, maybe a couple of wins because there was some expansion teams in there, whatever. Okay, yeah, maybe they would have had there not been those teams in there. But it didn't stop in the 90s, okay? There's 30 teams, or I think it was 29 actually. After 1996, I think it was up to like 2005 or 6. The Charlotte Bobcats got a franchise. Well, I think they were they were the New Orleans Hornets, I think, that made the 30th team that became the Charlotte Bobcats. They they were the 30th team. So they had a little mini expansion of their own. However, you can look at some of these teams, especially in the mid-2010s, and you tell me with a straight face if you think that a 59-win Toronto Raptors team, I think it was in 2018, or a 59-win 2009 Orlando team, if you thought those teams were better, then let's just say, for example, the 1998 Indiana Pacers that won 58 games. You're telling me that those teams were better than the Indiana Pacers in 1998? Because I am not buying that at all, not by a long shot. Or the 2015 Atlanta Hawks won 60 games, 6-0. Are you kidding? So they won 60 games. That's the same as the 1993 Knicks. So is anybody going to sit here and tell me the 2015 Hawks were as good as the 93 Knicks? Please. I think we all know better than that. So this whole inflated win thing, I'm just not buying it. What happened was, especially in the West in the 90s, it was a little top heavy. There were some teams in the bottom of the West like Dallas, Sacramento, of course, Vancouver, Minnesota. There was 4 or 5 teams that just weren't really that good. But there was good teams in the 90s. I mean, there was really good teams in both conferences. It just kind of flip-flopped of what year it was. Some years the East was better. Some years the West was better. When it got all the way to the end of the 90s, like 1999, that's where the total shift occurred. And the West got, a lot stronger. Of course, when Scottie Pippen goes from the East to the West, Dennis Rodman's now not on the Bulls anymore. I mean, I know he played a little bit, but I don't even count that. Michael Jordan retired. I mean, right there, you're losing a lot. You're the team that just three-peated is basically gone. So I think that played definitely some kind of part in it. But, it just seemed like the West always kept getting the best players, blah, blah, blah. But also, the 2018 Golden State Warriors, 2018 Houston Rockets won 65 games. Now, is there anybody who's watching this video, and please tell me in the comments, explain it thoroughly, that thinks the 2018 Houston Rockets at 65-17 was better than the 1996 Seattle Supersonics, who were 64-18. They were actually one game worse than this team. Really? Please explain to me how that's even possible, because it's not even close. It's a joke. And also I believe it was the 2016 San Antonio Spurs. Now, they were a good team. No doubt. I'm not going to say that they weren't. They were a good team. But 67-15, they were 40-1 at home. That's the same exact situation as the 86 Celtics. Please. Or if you want to go into the expansion era, that's fine. The only team in the 90s that won 67 games on the nose was the 92 Bulls. Now, are you going to tell me that the 2016 Spurs were as good on the same exact level as the 92 Bulls were? Yeah, also, good luck with that. They had a good team, but Duncan was on it, was his last season. He wasn't even really playing that much. Ginobili was like 39 years old. Tony Parker was still an effective player, but he was his prime was over. Kawhi Leonard, absolutely very good player. I think they had LaMarcus Aldridge. So, yeah, they had a good team. But 92 Bulls good? Yeah, I don't think so. But that's what I'm saying. Like, this whole 90s inflated record thing, I'm not buying it at all. And I am going to do a video on that here in a little bit to go in more detail about it. Because, like I said, you want to talk about inflated records. Man, the 2010s had a bunch of teams that were just so inflated. It was ridiculous. Like, really? But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And again, wrapping up, the only team to beat 4 60-win teams in a back-to-back was the 96 and 97 Bulls. And then the only other team to beat 3 was the 97 and 98 Bulls. They beat 3. And the Lakers of 2000, 2001, and then 01 and 02, they do share the 55-plus win with the 96, 97, and 97, 98 Bulls. They do. They're 5 and 5. They did just as good. And I look at the competition, and again, I think that in the West, maybe in the first round, you played a better team than the Bulls did. The Lakers played a better team in the first round. But in the finals, definitely the Bulls had better competition. There's just no doubt about it. And then I would say in the semifinals and the conference finals, it was very comparable. It just was. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And that's it for now.